Hey Jerry, I got something I want to run by you, get your advice on. I've got a group of guys we pulled together in a mentoring situation at our campus, and they had to apply, and so we went through them, made the selections, but now that we're into it, they're really quite diverse in their spiritual needs. We've got some things we need to accomplish with the group, so I've maintained the focus of the group times, but I'm really, I'd made time commitments previous and really wondering what I should do with these guys individually to meet the needs that are coming up as we meet in the group.
All right, so, first I'll be happy to give you some thoughts and advice and that kind of thing, but before we do, just maybe ask you a few questions just to kind of get a sense of what's going on, and then we kind of go on from there. Does that sound good to you?
Sure.
All right, so you've got, how many people are involved in the mentoring thing?
5.
You got 5, and your goal is to set up a mentoring class or whatever that you pour into these guys for the next how long?
For 10 months.
All right, 10 months, and you say you've got just diverse. So talk to me a little bit about the diverse strata that I think is what you.
The goal is that they would commit to, at some point in their life, mentoring other men or boys. But what I'm finding is that we've got some guys that really need some help just with basic spiritual disciplines.
Okay.
And then we've got some guys on staff,
Okay.
So we've got a set topic that we talk about every week and books that we're reading. But finding the time to work with these guys individually that are, they're just all over the place in their spiritual journey.
Okay, so the issue is, part of it is your time.
Yes.
Because you've got some guys that you thought in your mind, and you told me this is right, you thought in your mind these guys were all going to be on the same place. I'd toss out a book, we'd read it, we'd discuss it, and then we'd kind of go on to the next thing. And what you're realizing is, can't really do that,
right, because
I've got this diverse group. And then it's taking a lot of your time, and you just don't have that time.
Well, yes, that's, I'm trying to change that some, but the needs of the guys, where they are individually, just as we've read through some of these first books, the needs that have surfaced and where they are individually, and trying to address that. Okay.
All right. So if I see right, you've got a couple of issues. One is time. One is some need that maybe, and your problem is you're having a hard time meeting that commitment.
Right.
So you've got to figure out, now what do I do?
You're right. Exactly.
Okay. All right. So then let's just talk about let's talk about some options. So what do you think, if you've kind of run this through in your mind, what are some options do you think that you may be able to maybe employ to kind of solve the problem? And then the question I'd ask you is have you thought about, is there any other option other than you as part of the solution? And what might those be?
Well, that's a good point. I have thought about just recently about pulling in some of the other guys that I know that have similar life experience with these guys, and get link those guys up. And the other is, what I've been doing is just, I've been changing my personal time to give more time to these guys in terms of, some of them have some really pressing issues.
Okay. All right. So do you think that involving, you said you've thought about involving some other guys. Have you actually involved other guys?
I haven't yet.
Or it's just you?
I haven't yet.
All right. So one, you could involve some other guys. Mm-hmm. 2, you've kind of reworked your own schedule. What are some other things you think might be viable solutions? Now, one other question real quick. If you bring the other guys in to help kind of mentor these guys with more of the need, could you still maintain the mentoring thing on one level and have these guys come in on another level and help out?
Sure. Well, now that you mention that's kind of confirmation of what I've been thinking about just even, the past 2 weeks, is that what I would do is have those guys do one-on-ones, because what's coming up is some specific issues among individuals that, let's say, the other 4 aren't experiencing. Right. And in praying about this, I have thought of one guy that, wow, if I could meet, have him, the mentee, meet this guy, they could spend some time together, because he's got similar life experience I don't have. Okay. That this guy needs to hear from that.
So you think that could be a viable option?
Yeah, it could be.
All right, so let's just, I want to ask you maybe a couple of other options just because
Sure.
if that guy doesn't work out or something like that, I'd like for you to just think through a couple of things. What do you think might be other options that you could do to kind of, because I think if I hear you, you just don't really want to carve out that much time dedicated to this and you need some relief there.
Right. Well, the other thing is just asking more of the student
Okay.
in terms of saying, hey, you need to read this area of the Bible. A couple of them in praying about the issue, I've thought of some, chapters of the Bible or specific area where if they would dive into that would help them, in other words, them discover their own issue, the solution to their own issue. So I've already done some of that.
How was the response good?
Yes, it is. It has been.
You think you could add more to that?
Yeah, I could. I mean, just in terms of, the individual needs.
Okay. All right, so you've tried a little bit of that, maybe a little bit more of that to kind of help those guys on the lower end of that spectrum kind of engage a little bit better.
Mm-hmm.
You've got the option of bringing somebody else in. Anything else that just comes to mind that might be a thought?
Well, I did think of some video,
Okay.
some things that I've seen before that I thought, I could have these guys watch this.
Right.
The challenge is I've already given them. I mean, they got quite a bit of homework in their own life, But I have asked them in the last session. I said, "You guys, I need you to step it up."
Okay.
So.
I've got a thought. Just if I could toss it out there, have you thought about? You've got some people in the mentoring group that might even be able to actually help. Have you thought about having, as part of just broadening the whole concept of mentoring with your group, having some of the guys even in the group kind of bring and be more responsible for some of the, so it's kind of a Paul and Timothy kind of a dynamic within the context of that mentoring group?
I hadn't thought of that. I have them pair up in between sessions, sort of like a prayer partner, battle buddy kind of concept. But that's a great idea in terms of giving one guy some guidance. Say, hey, would you help this guy with this?
Okay.
So they wouldn't be overwhelmed. Just say, I want you to share with this guy this, you do this really well, or this is an area of excellence in your life. Would you share that with that guy? That's a great idea.
All right, so of the things we've talked about, which two do you think you'll walk out here and say, okay, I think I'm going to try those?
Definitely the pulling in someone else with some life experience to do a one-on-one, and I'll probably try with one of the guys that I know is capable and has some pretty broad life experience, a little more intentional prayer partner, battle buddy kind of thing.
All right. You think that could at least be the beginnings of
Sure.
a solution?
Yeah, it's a great idea.
So when do you think you could actually move forward with that?
I think by Friday.
Is this helpful for you? Is that
Very.
what you're hoping for?
Very.
All right, very good.
Okay.
Thank you, man. Hope
Thank
it works
you.
out.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, Joe.
What was awesome about this is that, I pray about this a lot. I mean, other than my own family, this is probably where I concentrate most of my prayers. And I had actually thought of two men, but hadn't moved towards them yet to help me with this. And so this is just confirmation. I mean, this is awesome. And I had not considered the idea of asking one of the guys in the group to help very specifically, but that could be really awesome in terms of these guys getting closer and bonding together, which is one of the things we really want, because we want them ultimately to consider serving together, in twos. Because one of the mistakes I made early on, the first years, I didn't have an assistant or, a lieutenant, so to speak. So this year I've chosen a guy to join me in hopes that not only he helps cover me and assist me, but also he gets a vision to do this on his own, and I'll pull up another guy to help me.
Well, the thing that I recognized early on in the conversation was that Joe had obviously thought about this quite a bit, and that and he really did. I thought he probably had a pretty good idea of the solution, just he hadn't actually put all the pieces together yet, which is the great thing about coaching. It just helps us connect some dots that for some reason we don't always connect on our own. So just some questions. I did want to keep the questions kind of at a high level because I thought that we were dealing with a problem that was relatively contained to his needing more time. And then when I had the thought about about maybe mentoring within the group. I had that thought relatively early on in the conversation, but I just wanted to play it out because of one, I wanted to make sure that Joe actually thought of and recognized some of the options that maybe he'd even considered in the past, but never really acted on. And then I just wanted to give him an additional piece that I had in the conversation. Ultimately, I thought we came to a good conclusion, and it just demonstrates how, in a relatively short period of time, you can actually really help somebody move down the field, so to speak, on solving an issue that they may be facing.
Well, and the good thing also that happened is that he asked me to make a decision about action, because that, as we all know, that's the thing we need. We need to make a decision and move, and that was awesome because I'm a let's move forward kind of guy, and just the bits of information he gave me enough faith and excitement. Yes, I can do this by Friday. I can make my first move by Friday, which is awesome.